I'm Ethan, 40 years old, and I never thought I'd say this, but the most shocking moment of my life came over a plate of spaghetti. It started like any normal Tuesday evening in our home just outside Portland. My girlfriend of 4 years, Jessica, had cooked dinner, poured wine, and even lit candles. It felt like she was setting up a celebration, so I assumed she'd gotten good news from work. Instead, she set her glass down, smiled in a way that didn't fit the moment, and said, "Ethan, I'm engaged." For a few seconds I thought she was joking, until she added, "To someone else. His name's Chris. We've been together for months." I just stared at her, the words refusing to make sense. "Engaged? While living in my house?" I managed to ask. "You're serious?" She nodded proudly, showing off a diamond ring that definitely wasn't from me. "Isn't it amazing? He proposed yesterday. I wanted you to be the first to know." The sheer absurdity of it all made me laugh. "You're engaged to another man while living in my house, and you wanted to share that over pasta?" Jessica frowned, confused by my calm tone. "Well, yeah, I thought we could be mature about it. I can stay here a month or two while Chris and I find a place." That was when reality clicked. The woman sitting across from me thought she could announce her engagement to another man, keep living under my roof, and I'd help her pack for her new future. I took a long sip of wine, looked her dead in the eyes, and said, "Congratulations to you both. You have 2 hours to move out." Her smile disappeared instantly. "You can't be serious. I live here." "No," I said, standing up. "You lived here, past tense." She began lecturing me about tenant rights, insisting I owed her 30 days' notice. I reminded her she never paid rent, never signed anything, and never contributed to the bills. She was a guest, and her stay had officially ended. When she started recording me on her phone, claiming harassment, I simply called the police. Within 20 minutes, 2 officers arrived. I showed them the deed and explained that my now ex had just announced her engagement to another man, but refused to leave. The officers exchanged looks that said they'd seen everything. "Mum?" one asked. "Is it true you told him you're engaged to someone else?" "That's not illegal," she snapped. "No, but it explains why he wants you out," the cop replied. When they asked for proof of tenancy, she had none. No lease, no payments, nothing. One officer sighed and said gently, "Ma'am, you should gather what you can tonight and leave voluntarily. Otherwise, this becomes a legal matter." Furious, Jessica stormed into the bedroom, calling her new fiancé. From her shouting, I gathered he couldn't take her in that night. Apparently, he shared a cramped apartment with 3 roommates. She spent the next hour packing while live streaming her outrage on Instagram, calling me a heartless ex who couldn't handle her happiness. She finally left with 2 suitcases and several trash bags, still filming herself as the officers watched from the porch. Before leaving, they told me to change every lock immediately. By midnight, a locksmith had done exactly that. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of missed calls and texts. Jessica's mother demanded to know why I'd thrown her daughter out. I asked if Jessica had mentioned being engaged to another man. After a long pause, her mother said she hadn't and hung up. A few hours later, there was knocking at my door. It was Chris, the new fiancé. Mid-30s, man bun, nervous energy. "We need to talk," he said. "You traumatized Jessica." I raised an eyebrow. "She announced your engagement to me while living here rent-free." He claimed she told him we'd been broken up for months and were just roommates. I showed him my phone with texts from days earlier. Jessica saying she loved me, asking me to plan a weekend trip, and requesting money for her student loan payment. He read silently, then muttered something, and left. I figured that was the end of it. I was wrong. Over the next few days, Jessica flooded social media with posts about how I'd emotionally abused her and thrown her out for finding real love. Her followers sent hate messages until I posted a calm rebuttal with receipts, screenshots of her texts, bank statements showing I paid every bill, and a photo of her engagement announcement taken right at my dinner table. The internet turned quickly. People commented things like, "Girl, you did what?" and "He handled that better than I would have." Her story unravelled fast. Then came the car situation. The vehicle she'd been driving was mine, registered, insured, and paid off in my name. When she refused to return it, I reported it stolen. 2 days later, police pulled her over. She called me from the station, furious. "You reported my car stolen." "My car," I corrected. "You don't live here anymore and you took it without permission." She screamed that I was evil. I told her I was just practical. She had to Uber back to her sister's house and sent me angry messages about how much the ride cost. I didn't reply. That same night, her new fiancé and 3 of his friends showed up at my place demanding to collect her things. I told them to leave. When they tried the back door, my security cameras caught everything. I called 911 again. The police arrived in minutes, and the scene ended with one of his buddies in handcuffs for attempted break-in and the others cited for trespassing. Watching them drive off under flashing lights was the calmest satisfaction I'd felt in months. A week later, Jessica's mother called again, this time asking to meet in person. We sat at a cafe downtown. She looked exhausted and older. "I need the truth," she said. I showed her everything, receipts, texts, the engagement dinner photo. Her face fell. "She told us you two were separated, that you were controlling and unstable. We believed her." She reached into her purse, slid an envelope toward me, and said, "This is $5,000. It's from me and her father. We can't fix what she did, but we can take responsibility for how we raised her." I tried to refuse, but she insisted. That moment told me karma was already working. A few weeks later, Jessica's sister Melissa reached out. She was letting Jessica stay temporarily, but was already regretting it. "She won't work, won't clean, just sits on her phone all day," Melissa said. "How did you deal with it for so long?" I told her, "Love makes you blind, but the moment you see clearly, you stop tolerating the chaos." 2 weeks later, Melissa called again, saying Jessica refused to move out. Meanwhile, Chris had dumped her after realizing she expected him to fund her entire lifestyle. Turns out his fancy marketing job was part-time at his dad's small company, and he couldn't afford her demands. Jessica responded by threatening to sue both of us for emotional distress and illegal eviction. My lawyer laughed when he saw the papers, mostly rambling nonsense about love discrimination. He filed a countersuit for back rent. Her lawyer dropped her immediately. When she tried representing herself, the judge dismissed it within minutes. The best part? The documents she filed made her new address public, Chris's apartment. Not long after, Chris called me in desperation. "Please, you have to help me. She won't leave. She says she'll accuse me of assault if I make her go." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Here's free advice," I said. "Get cameras. Record everything. When she threatens you, call the police. First one to call. Usually wins." He sighed, said he was an idiot, and hung up. A month later, I learned Jessica had moved back with her parents. She was working part-time at a clothing store and posting online about healing from narcissistic abuse. I didn't comment, didn't care. My house was quiet again. My bills were lower, my stress gone. I started dating someone new. Olivia, 36, independent, owns her own house, splits every check. The normalcy feels almost foreign after years of chaos. A few weeks ago, I ran into one of Chris's old roommates at a bar. He told me the final chapter. Apparently, Jessica had convinced Chris to propose by claiming she was pregnant while still living with me. When he realised she'd lied about the pregnancy, he tried to leave, but she threatened to ruin him. His roommates secretly installed cameras in the shared living areas and caught her bragging on video about how easy men were to manipulate. They gave the footage to police, who escorted her out for harassment. Common areas don't count as private space, so she couldn't even claim illegal recording. Hearing that, I realised karma doesn't always strike fast, but when it does, it hits with precision. Looking back, all the signs were there. She hadn't held a steady job in years, always had an excuse, always had a crisis that required me to pay for something. She loved attention, not partnership. Her engagement announcement wasn't just betrayal, it was liberation disguised as humiliation. If she'd played it smarter, she might have kept draining me for years. But arrogance made her sloppy, and that dinner ended everything neatly. These days, I wake up grateful. My home feels lighter, quieter. I don't need revenge. Peace itself is the sweetest payback. Jessica can keep chasing her true love narratives. I'm living mine, stable, self-made, and finally drama-free. If you were in my position, what would you have done that night? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want more real stories where karma eventually balances the scales. Because in the end, life always keeps the receipts.